Hi there, it's Nadia Vatsilides, Head of People at Doist. I wanted to share a little bit about how we've created our performance review cycle. I had such great questions from a few of my friends in DMs, even one South African company that asked, but what does the performance review cycle actually look like? You know, they appreciate the Gemini Gem insight, but they just wanted to see what the actual process looks like. I have a strong belief that when you're running a performance review cycle and it's very complex and it has a lot of questions, the first step might be just to simplify it tremendously. And if you're starting out and you're starting a performance review cycle for the very first time, I'd also recommend simplicity, right? And this means having a very low number of questions per reviewer. So whether you're conducting a self-review or a manager review or a peer review to get that 360 holistic feedback, the less questions you ask, I believe, the better quality input and feedback you get. I find the more questions you ask and the more complicated the process, the quicker you lose the narrative of the message you're trying to share with that person. I solidly believe feedback is a gift. I know many people at Doist does as well, and many of my peers feel the same way. And it's therefore really vitally important to me that if someone has feedback, that I'm able to actively hear what they're trying to say. And if it's a ton of information, I find it very difficult to unpack what are the pieces I can work on and develop, and what are the things that isn't, that might be going really well that I don't need to focus on that much. So I like the idea of a very simple process. And for that reason, when we revamped our performance review cycle in Q2, I was very lucky to do that in a squad alongside Andrew and Anton, who was actually in our front-end engineering team. He's a lead in our front-end team. One of the things we started looking at was to create a simpler process and look at the questions. So I'm quickly showing you what a self-review at Doist looks like. We have linked the self-review process to a feedback compass that's in our Doist handbook. And we documented and wrote that, as well as the actual process is very well documented. So always refer back to single source of truth of why and how things work in this review cycle. You'll see that we have a self-review rating of 4. And so fascinating. We decided to not have a rating out of 5. The number 3 can often act as a crutch in a work environment. And so this is going to feel very controversial, especially for my folks that truly love surveys and understanding CSAT scores and understanding the entire sort of NPS process. But I'm pivoting a little bit away from that. I'm removing any crutch. It's about radical candor. It's about sharing hard truths. And it's about celebrating things that's gone exceptionally well. And so we want no vague feedback. We removed 3, which would be usually the midpoint in a 5 rating scale, which can be a crutch. And so our rating scale is only out of 4. We also documented what each of these ratings mean very clearly in our handbook. I might create a video on what that looks like in future. So follow along and see what that is. And so in the self-review, you would reflect and rate yourself based on your rating out of 4. We have a question on positive impact at Doist, and we have also created a career level framework where it very clearly describes impact at every single level at the company as well as the role. And so this question is like, in what ways have you contributed, to positive impact in your team or squad? And please provide 2 to 3 examples. Kept it very lean. Next question is, what developmental opportunities do you have? What are the key development areas that you feel you can improve, and work to increase your impact at Doist, with examples? And we added a free box to just add additional context. And that's it for a self-review cycle. If I quickly go back and I show you what a manager review cycle might look like, this would be, I'll show you the peer review very, very briefly. It's so similar. You'll see it's very simple. But a peer at Doist does not get to add a rating. We feel that a manager, a lead or a head at Doist is more, will have more insight to take on all the peer review, the self-review, their own review on this Doista to make a more holistic decision on an actual rating. And so we removed the burden of adding a rating for all peer reviewers. But very similar questions. In what ways did this Doista contribute to positive impact in their team or squad? What developmental opportunities exist? 1 or 2 examples, right? And what additional context do you have? That additional context box is important for us as well. Imagine someone went out during surgery in the middle of a squad, right? In the middle of a big project. Of course, that context is so vital to know or to have. So that's why we have that box, just for transparency. There's so many other things you can add in that box. And then lastly, a manager review would also link to these things, but additionally, we have launched our very first culture of feedback and performance leadership training, and so that's linked there as well, and we recommend folks complete that first before doing a review cycle as a manager or lead or head at Doist. And you'll see the questions are the same. And so if you expected smoke and mirrors today, it's not. It's actually such a simple process. It gets straight to the point, very similar questions as to what you saw before, as well as that additional box. And then finally, for those that are eligible, we also have a section on potential level progression. So if someone should get a promotion, etc., based on their rating. I hope this is helpful. I hope to actually see what other companies are doing. I loved seeing how remote.com recently did their performance review in 48 hours. My goodness, would that be an achievement at a company like Doist in future? And definitely something I aspire to do. But in the meantime, I think these iterations have just been magical. We obviously aim for 100% of eligible Doisters in this review cycle to complete their performance review. But it's also been fascinating to, as a peer, to add feedback and then use our Gemini Gem to complete these questions. If you have any questions, if you have any ideas, please share them. I'd love to see what other people are building. There's only a handful of companies that are still open sourcing their processes. And so if you're one of them, don't hesitate to share. Bye.